It is Monday, January 15th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. You know that dude, Bobby Skinner from the Talking Giants world. I am Chris Rose, producer Mikey along for the ride as well. Anybody else have a real interesting weekend around here?
No, I mean we're watching playoffs. Some people were riding D's.
Yeah,
How you doing, Chris Rose?
I am great. I am great. This is the way I've explained it to people, my good friends. First of all, it's amazing when you trend because you hear from people you haven't heard from in years. Like, these names pop up on your phone with texts, and you're like, oh, so good to hear from you. Why are you reaching out? Um, Nobody got hurt. It was funny. It was not controversial. And MJD and I love working with one another. When we were done after the segment, actually in the middle of the segment, when we went to like an interview or something, I turned to him and I went, really? He's like, what am I supposed to do with that? I was like, just keep rolling, maybe. But it was perfect the way it happened because the stop and stare, and then when I finished with defense, it was great. It
What
was
did
fun.
your kids say?
It was funny because Brady, who's the younger one, like his buddies posted it on social media, like tackling little kids. And actually, one of them was on the phone with him when I got home. I was like, "Really, Vigo? You posted that thing?" He goes, "Chris, it was great. You're world known now. You're world famous." I was like, "Oh, perfect, great." So
Well, there'll
there
be
you go.
no D riding on football today. We're
No,
going after teams today. We're not riding. Anyways, let's talk about these games.
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's start in Dallas. I will not refer to it as big anything. It is just Dallas
The
in
big
my
D.
world. Packers thrash the Cowboys. They advance to the divisional round, so they erase the number 2 seed. Now they get a shot at the number 1 seed next Saturday. That means Dallas will now not make at least the NFC title game for almost the 30th straight year. In your opinion, does Dallas need to A, change its quarterback, B, change its coach, or C, change both?
You have to change the coach. You have to. You need to go get, we'll talk about Bobby Slowick later. Someone like Bobby Slowick who's going to week in, week out look to take advantage of the other defense's issues and not just run your offense. That was pathetic, man. That was a pathetic outing as we've ever seen of this Dak Prescott Dallas era, right? And you can't just throw away Dak Prescott, right? But at what point do we start judging him for the playoffs? And not do like we said all year, and I honestly hated it, Rose, because I hate judging a team for its last year's performances. But it's like I'm not buying in. I'm not buying into Dallas. I don't care how good they look. I'm not buying into Dallas until they win big games. And then they beat Philly, and we're like, okay, that's the one we've been asking for. But now we've seen that Philly is really just not that good. We'll see if they can beat the Bucks on Monday night. At what point are we? This is just a team full of stars that's going to have great regular season outings and just chokes in the playoffs. Like they choke to a team that wouldn't have even been in the old playoff format.
I got to admit, I got this year. I really did. For the longest time, when you work covering the NFL, you have to talk about the Cowboys, right? It just feels like you have to. But for the longest time, I also felt like, well, if you put these guys just in other helmets without a star on the side, how interesting would the team be? Would we really be talking ad nauseum about them? And there were years where, yeah, maybe they deserve a little bit of chatter here and there. But for the most part, they were okay. They were like a lot of these other teams that were fighting for playoff spots. Maybe they'll go on a run, maybe they won't, but they weren't anything special. And then this year, I was like, damn, particularly when they're at home, they are a different team. They're blowing out teams by 16, 17 points per game. They're putting up almost 40 per contest at home. So when they won the NFC East and guaranteed themselves a home game, when they won that game on that Saturday night against Detroit, whether with or without the help from the referees, they guaranteed that they'd have a shot at the 2 seed. And boy, it was all there for the taking. The road to San Francisco and being in a conference championship for the first time since 1996, I believe, it was right there for everything. And then it just crashed. And the fact that it happened against a 7 seed, which had never won in this tournament before Sunday, B, the youngest team to ever participate in a playoff game since 1970, and C, A Joe Barry coach defense? Are
Thank
you
you.
kidding me?
I think Joe Barry might be one of the worst defensive coordinators, if not the worst defensive coordinator in the NFL. And all you did was just sat there and try to force feed the ball to CeeDee Lamb in the middle of the field. Of course, they're going to have that covered. Of course. So you tried to force feed the ball to CeeDee Lamb. You I like this has to like we can't fall for this. Like, what are we going to do next year when the Cowboys do the exact same thing in the regular season, Rose? Like, it sucks to sit here and blame them for their last year's failures, but it's the same old thing. Dak in the playoffs chokes. He does not show up. He has 4 interceptions in his last 2 playoff games. His 2 playoff wins were versus Seahawks in 2018, where they ran the ball 34 times, and then the 8-9 Bucks last year. Like, you can't just throw Dak Prescott away, right? Like, you can't. But do you like start to create an exit plan? Like, what do how did like that's where I'm at a loss of what to do. Is because this isn't Tua. This isn't some just quarterback who's like living off of scheme and stuff. In fact, I think the scheme is underwhelming, especially when you're playing, in the playoffs. What do they do going forward besides change the head coach, which can help, but
Okay.
I think it's a lot of a more Dak issue than we want to give it credit.
Okay. Well, let's start with one at a time. With Dak, he's got one more year left on that 4-year, $160 million deal. Why can't you just let it play out?
But then what do you do from there?
Well, you can. There are quarterbacks available this year, right? They do have their pick. I think it's right around 24 or something like that. So if you see somebody you like, I mean, you've got to start doing your homework. You just have to, because now you know exactly what Dak is. And I don't think that's good. Like, if you were another team and he was available, would you say that's the guy to help us win a Super Bowl? Let's start with that question.
No, I would rather go after Kirk Cousins. And we talked about this on
Okay.
maybe the first couple of episodes of this show, Rose, of who would you rather have, Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott? And we said
Hmm.
Kirk Cousins, right? And Kirk Cousins got hurt this year, but this was his best season.
Hmm.
Like, Dak is probably going to finish like third or fourth in MVP voting, and rightfully so. And I mean, the interceptions were forcing throws. He should have thrown 3 more interceptions, by the way. Like, their
Okay.
touchdown at the end of the half, there was a ball that went into another player's hands. There was a
Yep.
couple other. He was missing CeeDee Lamb, not gargantuan misses, but missing him. Um, like, they defied logic in the wrong way. Well, they have all these all pros. They have a team, and I put out before the game. I was like, "There's no excuses for the Cowboys." You
Yep.
usually wouldn't talk
Solid.
about that in a 2-7 seed, but you just had this feeling it's the Cowboys. It's the playoffs. They're going to choke, and that's why I put that line. There's no excuses for this. This cannot be written off. And Greg Olson, who I thought did a good job breaking down the game, he had there's going to be overreaction to this. I don't think there can be an overreaction to this. I really don't think there's anything that Jerry Jones that can do that would say that's a total overreaction to this.
Okay, so let's get the other side of this, because I think both you and I think they're going to be stuck with Dak just because of salary cap ramifications for the next year. I think it's like a $60 million cap hit if they try to move on from him this year. So I think we'd have to table that discussion momentarily. The coaching point, we have never seen a coaching free agent class quite like this one, right? You've got the most sought after guy who's in college and has been successful at this level in Jim Harbaugh. You've got Bill Belichick, who's the greatest coach in the history of this sport. I don't care whether he's 71 or whatever. The guy can still coach. Bill Belichick, the talent evaluator, is the guy that did in Bill Belichick, the coach in New England over the last several years. Pete Carroll is available if you want to go that route. And then Mike Vrabel, who's much younger than those guys, but still has had a successful run in his 6 years as an NFL head coach. Don't you think all of those guys would be a major upgrade from what they've gotten Mike McCarthy?
Yeah, but to me, it has to do with the play caller, right? Like, who is calling? Like, if Bill Belichick gets in there, who is calling the plays? Because you need an excellent play caller, like one of these up and coming young guys that we talk about. Like, and those guys don't just become available. Those guys either become head coaches or they stay where they're at. So you gotta have some vision. So if you go get Bill Belichick, like, outside of GM decisions, I think his worst decision in 24 years as the Patriots head coach was the Joe Judge, Matt Patricia offense. And then you bring in Bill O'Brien, think it'd be a little better, and that obviously didn't work either. So, like, that's, you know, Bills went to the well on his coaches over the years, right? He hasn't really brought in a bunch of young new cats. Um,
Josh
I was
McDaniels.
Does a Josh McDaniels Dak Prescott offense work? I don't know. I if I'm the Chargers, I want Josh McDaniels with Bill Belichick. With Dak, I don't know because I don't really trust Dak. Like in these big time moments, he gets lost. He gets stuck on what should be there and doesn't get off of it. So it'll look really good in the regular season. I think in the playoffs to run that offense, you gotta be two steps ahead. And in the playoffs, Dak just gets like tunnel vision.
Okay. Jim Harbaugh.
Yes, but he's going to try and bring in whoever to run the damn ball and get them going and stuff, and that could be some success. And they have the personnel to do that. But this is where it's like I don't know where this team goes because they can absolutely make upgrade a head coach, but their talent is awesome, and they just lost to the 7th seed. And I McCarthy has to be fired. And I'm not advocating the move off of Dak, right? I think that would be silly, but I just I'm not putting any faith in Dak to lead a team to the Super Bowl. He's given me no reason to besides regular season success in all these years.
By the way, I know you mentioned somebody like Bobby Slowick, and we'll talk about what he did to the Cleveland Browns as the Houston OC in just a few minutes. But I don't think you can go unproven. I don't think you can get rid of Mike McCarthy and go with a maybe right now. I just can't do it. Now, I understand your trepidation with an offensive staff under all the guys we mentioned in terms of Belichick, Vrabel, and Pete Carroll, who have tried several different offensive coordinators in recent years, and they haven't found the right fit. So I understand that. I agree with all of that sort of stuff. Man, I don't think I could shoot my shot with one of these young OCs and just say, hey, screw it. It'll work. No way.
But I feel like that's the only thing that's going to get Dak to be successful in the playoffs is someone who's able to, do what, Bobby Slowick did versus the Cleveland Browns, to do what, LaFleur did to the to the
Hey,
Cowboys in this game. Like,
there's a big difference between devising a game plan against the defense and running a room. And you know that. We don't know. Like, there's been a ton of brilliant minds, both offensively and defensively, who cannot handle the room and, more importantly, cannot handle Dallas. That's a different animal. I don't know Bobby Slowick at all. Maybe his personality's great. Maybe he's right in line for it. But, dude, that is a big step up.
yeah, to me, if they don't do that, I think they're just going to be stuck in this realm of losing the playoffs. Maybe it raises their ceiling a little bit where they can get to that conference championship, but I'm never going to pick this team to win 4 games in a row in the playoffs with Dak Prescott at quarterback.
I think we can agree on this, that if Jerry Jones is making a move, he's making it in the next probably 48 hours. He has to.
He takes so long. You remember the Jason Garrett firing took like over a week. Remember those dilemmas? I'm not convinced that Jones is going to do it.
I'm
He's
not
more
either.
patient than we realize, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
gotten very patient in his old age. Um, I'm not convinced that McCarthy's gone. Now, our luck, this podcast will come out and he'll be fired at that point. But
All right. So Jordan Love lit up Dallas. Aaron Jones ran all over him. But that Green Bay defense stifled the number one scoring offense when the game was still close. Just how shocked were you the way the game itself played out in Green Bay's favor?
I was stunned. I mean, it was 27-0, and you're just like, this is like a parody of the Dallas Cowboys. I know we're talking about from the Packers' point of view, but man, they did everything well. Like you said, they ran the ball extremely well. Aaron Jones got to run the ball 21 times for 6 yards a pop, basically 3 touchdowns. Um, I know I haven't been the biggest Jordan Love fan, but the one thing I really do like about him is his willingness to hang in there and throw the ball over the middle of
Mm-hmm.
the field, which the last quarterback we talked about, I think that's an issue with him. Like that really showed up, and not even like the touchdown to Wicks is the one that we'll remember versus that cover zero, but there was others earlier in the game. Um, but I think it's the turnovers are on defense, which is really what made this game a blowout and not a 31-24 type game.
Well, because they are the youngest team to ever enter the playoffs since 1970, we just thought they didn't really have a chance. Like they've been a remarkable story, but outside of the Chiefs, where maybe you got a little bit of help on that Sunday night game, but who else down the stretch did you really take care of? But I'll tell you what Jordan Love did. He took care of the football. His last 9 games, he's got 21 touchdowns and has thrown 1 interception. I think the
And he's not
growth.
safe with the ball really either. Like in a sense where it's like he's just dinking and dunking. Like he puts that
Well,
ball out there and with some air under it over the middle of the field, he takes some chances.
I wish we could have had a camera on him from day one when he showed up as the number one pick in 2020 to yesterday. Because I think the growth of this kid, who was literally on layaway, like we saw him with one start when Rodgers, I think, had COVID. That was in Kansas City a couple of years ago. And then all of a sudden he's handed the keys to the car. And there were some people, and I know we talked about it on the show, who after 4 or 5 weeks were like, Packers haven't found their quarterback. And that was so unfair. It was so unfair. And now he is light years ahead of where he was even in the beginning of October of this past season. Like he just seems like a dude that, I mean, there were some Rodgers-esque throws. The number of times he threw off his back foot yesterday, like, didn't you feel like you were watching number 12 at times?
Yeah, I mean, it was like every good play they had was Jordan Love throwing over off his back foot over the middle of the field. So yeah, there's absolutely been growth. I mean, I think he had like the second worst completion percentage in the NFL after Zach Wilson at one point in the season. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
it's at now. Obviously, it takes a long time to bump that back up, so probably still was low for the whole year. Um, I still am not like fully sold on Jordan Love. Like sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
have to remind myself it is year 4 for him. Um, I still like I think there's some inconsistency there, but so how if this is my question, and this what you, how do you think you should judge Jordan Love as like a rookie or as someone who's going to be going into year 5 next year?
No, I think that there's a special category. You can't put him in the rookie class
I think what you
because
have to do is you saw Rodgers didn't play as great. Like his year 1 there wasn't amazing. Not to just, relate everything to the Packers. I think the beginning of year 2, I think you have to judge him against everybody else. Where this year, I think I'm judging him on like a rookie grading, not a full rookie grading scale, but hey, there's going to be some inconsistencies there. But hey, he's got another playoff game though too, so that could do a whole lot for you too.
yeah, later in the week we'll talk about what sort of, tests they will give San Francisco. And I think that obviously they won over a heck of a lot of fans on Sunday. It was so impressive on every level. And by the way, don't sleep on the return of Aaron Jones to health. Like that's 4 straight 100-yard games for him, 3 touchdowns yesterday. He is a difference maker. Like on a team, particularly on a team that is so young at the skill positions, where every receiver and tight end is either a rookie or in the second year. Like for a guy who's been there, who's been through everything, just kind of be like, okay, we're good, and such a good personality and a good guy. I was
I
happy
think
for
he's
him.
one of the most underrated backs over the last 5 years
Yeah,
because you had Rodgers and Devontae. Everyone knew he was good, but he never really got talked about in that top tier because they had Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And then this year, I mean, he started out hot, and then
right.
they were using him as a receiver, and then he got injured and was kind of banged up throughout the whole year. And obviously, we saw him yesterday do what he does.
All right, let's move on to Sunday Night Football, which was really the saving grace of the first 2 days of Super Wildcard Weekend because we had 3 stinkers before that one. Detroit ends up getting its first postseason win in 32 years, hanging on to beat the Rams by 1. Goff and Stafford against their old teams, they were both great, both great. How amazed are you with the 3-year turnaround in Motown under Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes?
It's phenomenal how they've built that. I think we did a similar segment a couple weeks ago. You know, truly like every fucking head coach is like, oh, we're gonna be toughness, smart, tough, da da da, and they truly have leaned into that, right? Like, and just be like, hey, let's just get talent, right? Let's not overthink this shit. Let's get tough, talented cats, and they've done that, right? And Laporta, he has a big game. Like they, like, I hate because it sounds corny and cliche, like they've and like taken on that city of Detroit, but they truly have. Like they've all bought in like bought into whatever on other teams, other coaches trying to do this. It's corny. The players roll their eyes, but for some reason, that team is just like a team full of high schoolers who are just like, this is it. This is life and death we put on for our city that we weren't raised in and didn't go to college to, but we got drafted here and we're putting on for our city.
I thought last night was really cool. Obviously, I did the post game right after it was over, and we have a reporter named Bridget Condon who was out there all weekend in Detroit, and she interviewed Taylor Decker, who's the longest tenured member of the Lions. And usually you don't interview offensive linemen after games. They don't like being interviewed, and offensive linemen are pretty anonymous people. Sorry, dude, but they just are. And he was the perfect guy to interview. He was so emotional, taking his time getting through the interview to talk about what it meant to the people of Detroit and to him, a guy who had been through so many horseshit seasons. And you could feel like almost going on the journey during this 2.5 minute interview with him, how hard it was to get to the point where they won a freaking playoff game at home that rewarded them with another one in 6 days. Like you could just feel part of the journey. And if you go back and you'll be on social media today, you will find a half dozen Dan Campbell clips from over the years where he is so relatable to us fans and more importantly to his players, right? Sometimes coaches say stuff and players roll their eyes. Like this is a dude who was in it for over a decade as a second and third string tight end. And he says, listen, I know that this is hard. If I didn't have to throw that clip where he says, if I didn't have to throw the pads on to make you better, I wouldn't. I would love to protect your bodies and I would love to protect your livelihoods, but I can't, guys. You have to understand that for the betterment of you and for us as an organization, we have to be tackling. We have to be blocking. We have to be hitting each other because we have to be ready to go week 1. We can't be in pad shape in week 7 or 8. Like his speeches are so good to listen to. And so you can understand why these guys have bought in over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that me and Justin got to go to Detroit and watch some of their practices and training camp. And we had just finished watching the Giants 9 training camp practices, and you go and watch in Detroit, and we're like, these dudes are fucking popping. Like this is a different practice. This is a different practice atmosphere. And after the Giants issues this year, the regression, you kind of want to be like, hey, look at that. Let's do a little more of that. Like even special teams drills. Like they are going all out, like blocking like it's like the Super Bowl, going all out. So building that, and it builds players who are just ready for every single moment, right? And Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't think we can talk about how good he is enough. You know, they had 3 third down conversions. They were all to Amon-Ra St. Brown. 3 catches for 67 yards, all big plays, including a 3rd and 14 that gave them the field goal that ended up winning the game. The 4th and goal touchdown to Laporta, and all of that while I don't want to talk. I want to talk about the booing and stuff in a second too. Like just one of the most memorable non-championship memories of the NFL in a long time.
Yeah. Well, you talked about them doing stuff that other teams don't, maybe in training camps and stuff. I think it starts with the messaging because not every coach could get his team to buy in the way that Campbell does. As far as the game goes, what, you had a problem with Stafford getting booed?
No, I loved it. I loved
Oh
it
yeah,
so
I
much.
didn't have a
I
problem.
had a problem with people having a problem with it. It's a playoff game. Do it
Right.
everything you get into his head. Now Stafford played awesome. I think he played better than Goff, honestly. Um, but you could tell it bothered him. Like was asked after the game if he's happy for the city at all, or whatever. He's like, I'm happy for their players. Made a point to be like I'm pissed off at those fans right now, which is fine. But I loved every second of it. There, what the closest that boo was to, and you know this one, LeBron's first game back in Cleveland, which is maybe the most insane sports moment of all time. Like that's the only thing that I can remember being more hostile than Matthew Stafford, like their beloved quarterback coming back.
Yeah, a little different, but yeah, I kind of get what you're talking about. Um, it was a fun game. I mean, the difference was that when the Lions were in the red zone, they scored touchdowns. When the Rams were in the red zone, they kicked field goals. and you end up losing by one. I know some people say the refereeing was shoddy. Yeah, it's been a major problem this year. I did think Stafford got roughed on that one shot where he took three different blows and then hit his head off the turf. I thought they missed that call. I hated what happened to Tyler Higbee. Now we hear that he's got a torn ACL. That wasn't an illegal shot. Was it a dirty shot? I don't know. I don't play football. You hear it. They talked about it last night on the broadcast where Collinsworth said if you talk to 25 guys and ask them whether they'd like to be hit near their head or near their knee, they'll all take their head. And it's because of shots like that with Tyler Higbee. We really narrowed the area where you could feel good about hitting a guy and not putting him at risk, head-wise or knee-wise. And that was a tough way to go. Tough way to look at it. All right, let's move over to the AFC. The champs are moving on to the divisional round for the seventh straight year. They took care of Miami in the fourth coldest game in NFL history. Defense was unbelievable. Offense was good enough. Are you willing to say, yes, Kansas City is a real Super Bowl threat after a regular season?
Yes, even though I wouldn't pick them versus the Texans or the Ravens. I mean, it's as simple as this, right? Like, I hate narrowing it down to such simplicities. They have the best quarterback in the NFL and the number 2 defense. They have a great head coach, and they have Travis Kelce, who is a playoff player who's, him and like why is Kelce always open? Because they freestyle, because they see something that a defense is doing and what the defense expects, and they just totally break the rules of what they're supposed to do. So when I think you have those 4 different factors, you got a pass rusher like Chris Jones who can change a game. I think they are always going to have a chance. They move the ball well. They just got to finish in the red zone. That's 6 scoring drives.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks, that's been a problem. Harrison Butker has, kind of saved them. He's been so good. But, yeah, they're going to have to start scoring touchdowns instead of settling for field goals at critical times. Also, Rashee Rice has not been the problem at receiver. That kid has grown up a ton over the last 5 or 6 weeks and become a really, really viable threat. You understand why now they traded up in the second round to get him.
Yeah, and he was a hard eval to do because he was such on polar. Like, he would have the best blocking reps in the world, and then you see him get pressed off to into the bench. But he's a perfect fit for the Chiefs because they're going to face so many zone coverages because of Mahomes. So he's a perfect fit for them. Mecole Hardman, how about we try and finish some plays, and maybe that can make a difference in what you guys do. If I was Andy Reid, I would gather that because Mahomes does it a little too, right? But it's not like but like you see, I mean, like, stop worrying about the refs. I don't want to hear anything about the refs anymore. Stop worrying about the refs. Don't talk to them during the game because I feel like sometimes it's distracting to the Chiefs where they're just always focused on the referees. After that, what was the game where they got screwed? I can't remember it.
The Packers game?
Well, no, it was
the Bills game.
He did get screwed. Yeah, the Bills game when they
the
Tony offsides thing.
Well,
Tony healthy scratch, by the way.
Listen, I think that if Buffalo wins today and they have to go to Buffalo, I mean, that is going to be a hell of a tall task for them. It's why I won't say they're necessarily all the way back, because if it's the top 4 seeds left in the AFC, let's play this game. Where would you rank them out of those 4 teams? 3 or 4?
I would pick them to beat the Bills. I know the Bills have beat them in the regular season consistently, but they've beat the Bills in the playoffs consistently. The Texans are tough. I feel like it being in Kansas City helps out a lot.
Yep.
And I feel like the Chiefs defense does change week to week, which will help them go against the Bobby Slowick and CJ Stroud. That one's tough. Now the Ravens, I'm picking over them clear cut, but the Texans, I could, literally depending on the weather, can change my opinion on that one.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to the Texans. CJ Stroud.
I want to spend a little time on this.
Oh, you want to talk Tua, don't you?
I'm done. The reason they didn't get shut out was because of a wildly underthrown ball that Tyreek Hill saved and made a touchdown. I'm out. What is, like, you can spare me all the yards and numbers and shit, but it's a McDaniel offense, right? Like, I feel like the way people talk about Purdy is the way we should be talking about Tua, where it's like he is totally, like, yeah. Is he accurate? Absolutely. Can he run McDaniel's offense excellently when it's perfect? Yeah. But it's basically first read, bam, get like the whole offense is built to get the attention of the off defense one way and have the second way you look open. And when the teams rotate to it well, he's just done. And the arm talent's not good enough. The ability to move is not good enough to make up for those issues. Is he going to continue to get better as a QB? Yes, but like I'm just out on Tua.
Okay. So what do? They already picked up his fifth-year option. I think he's like 23 million or something like that. I mean, you have to run it back with him,
Yeah, you
right?
play this year out. Now, if they truly want to go after Kirk, then do it. If they don't, like I'm not going to be mad at them for not going after Kirk. But you play it year by year. You play this year, and this next year, and if it's in place where hey he did well, you franchise tag him. Like look at the mistakes of teams like my Giants did. I franchise tag him because I'm just not I'm not giving up big. I'm not building big assets into Tua Tagovailoa. Shabalabalovo.
Yeah, him too. So wait a second. You said go after Kirk, and what? You keep Tua as a $23 million backup?
Oh no, you trade him.
All right.
But I'm saying I'm not gonna cuss out the Dolphins for not going after Kirk and all that. But I think they should.
I think they should too, man. It feels like they're making a real mistake if they don't.
And people are gonna cry. Oh, look, he led the league in yards. Da, da, da. I
That
don't
doesn't
give a
matter.
shit,
I
dude.
don't either. Dude,
Like
they went
you,
one and six.
he is an eye test quarterback, and the eye test tells you he's not an elite quarterback, and he's never ever going to be an elite quarterback. Can he get to golf level? Yes, but I don't think he's on golf's level.
They went 1-6 against winning teams this year. They had one freaking win against a winning team.
And it was versus the freaking Cowboys, and then the Cowboys shot themselves in the foot 20 times in that game. Fullback fumbled a touchdown.
All right. Now we're on to CJ Stroud, who continues to wow the world, dropping 45 on the number one ranked defense in the league. Is Houston a cute little story or a real problem for whomever is next?
I think they're a real problem for anybody. Like, do even the Ravens look at them and be like, oh, Texas, they can't handle that, right? Like having, despite the offensive line injuries, having Laremy Tunsil is a game changer. Like, I want to ask you, do people realize how good Laremy Tunsil is before this game versus Myles Garrett? Because
No.
he's been a top 3 left tackle for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, he's just incredible. He's a beast. He shut down Garrett. In fact, that whole offensive line, I think that was the thing that surprised me the most. I understood that Tunsil could erase Myles Garrett. I was surprised that the rest of the team, not only did they get no sacks, they only hit Stroud once.
They did a great job, like being able to scheme big plays while protecting their right tackle Charlie Heck, who got destroyed in that matchup earlier in the season. And you thought that Cleveland would be able to take advantage of some of that stuff, but yeah, CJ Stroud's awesome. To me, this was more of a Bobby Slowick game, though, right? Because you think about how they scored. Now, Stroud had big plays that led to the actual touchdown play. Like the first 2 scoring drives were big throws to Nico and Mechie, where Stroud stands in and gets hit. But the touchdowns were the Nico Collins screen, which screen plays are hard to run in the NFL. Like, honestly, I wish teams ran them less. The Dalton Schultz one, which was beautiful, where it's like you get everybody flowing one way.
Beautiful.
You've put this play on film a million times. You have Dalton Schultz. Oh, he's running a corner. Bang, bang it inside. He's open. One of the most underrated players. And then Brevin Jordan, who I might be like the only person in the NFL world who likes Brevin Jordan. Their backup tight end has all that yak play. So just was able to do a good job protecting up front while being able to create explosives. Like I thought it was, CJ Stroud operated it perfectly, and Slowick, man, he put together a good game plan versus Schwartz.
And it still was a relative game midway through the third when Flacco, I think, was trying to throw that away. I don't know, but that was a first down play. Like if you could have one play back, just eat it. Like it's 2nd and 17. You're still can maybe get a field goal out of that drive, or who knows, somehow you extend the drive. You cannot just throw the ball into the air.
It's first. I had that because I want to ask you, because obviously you're a Browns fan. How disappointing was that from Flacco, right? Because this team was the most turnovers in the NFL, and it's like, man, just stop turning over the damn ball. It's 24-14. You're gonna at the Texans 34 first down. You're gonna make this a 1-score game. And he just throws the game away, and then the fourth down. I don't hate him as much for that. I hate the play call a little more than I hate Flacco on that. Just I mean, Stroud had to threw the ball 5 times in the second half
Yeah,
because
well, but that was
Flacco
the
threw the
thing.
game away.
Yeah, they just their defense is what shocked me. The fact that the Browns had their worst tackling day, and they totally got. I mean, there were other plays for the Texans to have made, right? On that first possession, Dalton Schultz got behind the defense. He could have had a 30-yard gain on a
Yeah.
pass play that he dropped. Like, they just totally out schemed Jim Schwartz's club. And Schwartz actually apologized to the GM. There's video of it after the game. It's like, I'm sorry. I don't know exactly what happened, but I'll give Houston a hell of a lot of credit to turn it around, basically 3 weeks after you're getting your butt kicked at home. I know, with a backup quarterback and some other guys who didn't play. But man, that was really impressive. And it was the number one reason why I didn't want to play Houston. Like, I had the 3 teams ranked that they could have played going into week 18. I first wanted Indianapolis, and then I wanted Jacksonville. And I wanted the least to do with Houston because of CJ Stroud and what he has brought to that team. Man, they are so set up right now for a myriad of reasons. But, all of a sudden that AFC South has gone from Jacksonville's division over the next 6-7 years to, depending on what Anthony Richardson turns into, that's going to be a hell of a battle down there.
When you think about maybe the talk about Trevor Lawrence coming into the season, and I think Trevor Lawrence is really good. But if I think 9 out of 10 people would say they want CJ Stroud over Trevor Lawrence. Like,
Oh,
I'm shocked that we are saying that at the end of the season. I'm
well,
shocked.
not only that, we know how crazy some people are. They're like, the only people I'd take over CJ Stroud right now are Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. Now, I think that people have forgotten how good Joe Burrow is when he's not limping around on a bad calf or having wrist surgery. But I understand the point. Like, his little subtle movements that he makes in the pocket it feels like he's been doing that 7 or 8 years, not 7 months. Pretty
Which is
impressive.
crazy because at Ohio State, I didn't do a deep dive into Stroud, but I watched some stuff. And you felt like, man, when you're not just overwhelming a team with talent, you saw like issues there. And he's totally dispelled a lot of that stuff. So he's
Well,
killer. I'm excited for him. As long as I just hope the Steelers don't win today because I want to see the Bills in the next. I think the AFC playoffs would be amazing.
I agree.
But those both matchups, man, are going to be sick in the AFC as long as Buffalo is able to pull it out.
Yep. And we'll see. By the time some of you are watching this, you'll know exactly who is moving on. We're going to have another episode probably Thursday since we go again with Saturday football. Does that sound okay to you?
I was thinking, what if we do a quick hitter tomorrow after the Monday
Oh,
games, like
possible.
a 15-minute episode?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that could be fun. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Enjoy your football viewing. For producer Mikey and Bobby Skinner from the Talking Giants world, I am Chris Rose. We've agreed. We will see you Tuesday on Football Today.